Hi, I'm Chen Yanjing. I'm going to introduce Taiwanese elementary school English teachers' perception of contextualized language instruction (COI) and its role in textbooks for teaching vocabulary. The study is published in Pedagogies and International Journal in 2026. The authors are Jing Wenjian, Timothy Teo, and Andy Gao. So, why does the study matters? The basic issue is the relationship between vocabulary context and textbooks. As an elementary school in Taiwan, it really connects with something I often feel in my own classroom. Sometimes the English, especially vocabulary used in a textbook, is grammatically right, but the situation feels a little unreal. The students can practice the words and sentences, but they may still wonder why anyone would actually say it. The authors point out that Taiwanese learners rely heavily on textbooks, but vocabulary and sentence patterns are not always presented in meaningful or authentic contexts. So here are the two research questions, which are what are Taiwanese elementary English teachers' perceptions of COI? And B, what are their perceptions of COI in English textbooks? First of all, I want to talk about what is contextualized language instruction. In this research, COI means providing vocabularies and sentence patterns as comprehensible input and designing texts that are relevant to authentic contexts in students' daily lives. The author described three dimensions, which are curriculum design, instructional design, and language samples. They also distinguish between linguistic context and experiential context. Linguistic one means the words and sentences surrounded by the target language. Experiential context means the real world situation in which learners encounter and use the language. So for CLT, there are four keywords, that is authenticity, meaningful context, learner relevance, and pragmatic appropriateness. The study used a collective case study with a multi-method approach. There were 41 Taiwanese elementary school English teachers from 8 schools. The teachers collected three kinds of data. First, teachers completed a questionnaire about their perceptions of COI, vocabulary, and grammar instruction. Second, each teacher evaluated a textbook unit, focusing on dialogues, vocabulary, and sentence patterns. Third, the researchers interviewed the teachers for about 30 minutes about the textbooks they had evaluated. This combination is one of the strengths of the study because the researchers did not rely only one real source of data. They could compare questionnaire responses, textbook evaluations, and interview comments. Here comes the first finding. The first major finding concerns the teacher themselves. The teachers showed a high awareness of COI. Their mean score for awareness of COI theories was 4.5 out of 5, and the statement that vocabulary and grammar should be taught in context received a mean of 4.6. However, their self-reported competence was lower. Word definitions received 3.5 and knowledge of word form, meaning, and use received 3.6. At the same time, teachers rated context-embedded activities beyond repetition and wordplay quite highly, both at 4.6. So the author identified a gap between what teachers believe or understand and what they are able to implement consistently. This connects with previous research on the belief-practice gap in language teaching. The second major finding concerns textbooks. Teachers gave relatively low ratings to several aspects of contextualization. Relevance to learners' lives and prior experience received only 1.5. Real-world use of language in text also received only 1.5, and pragmatic appropriateness received 1.7. The interviews make these numbers more concrete. For example, teachers criticizes what's this when the object is already obvious. They also criticizes what color is it when a character asks about the color of something that is clearly visible. So the issue is not simply whether the English is correct, It is whether the language has a believable communicative purpose for these learners. What does the mean for vocabulary teaching? First, teachers should think beyond definitions. Vocabulary knowledge includes form, meaning, and use. Second, learners need opportunities to encounter and process words in different meaningful contexts. So the author suggests connecting vocabulary with their knowledge, with their lives, and authentic tests. Third, again, textbooks can provide a framework, but teachers may need to adapt or supplement them. The author therefore recommended two major directions. One is to stronger teacher education, and the other is collaboration between teachers and textbook publishers. In conclusion of the study, the author mentioned several limitations, including the following 6 points plus one I wanted to emphasize. The teachers think textbooks are not contextualized enough, but it's from teachers' perspectives. It cannot prove that contextualized textbooks actually produce better vocabulary learning outcomes. So my critic one is that I agree with the author's suggestions that publishers and teachers should collaborate to create more localized and authentic textbooks. But I wonder how much contextualization can realistically add. In an elementary school, if everything goes according to schedule, we may have only around 6 class periods to finish one unit, including workbook activities. That means teachers may not have enough time to explore the meaning of every vocabulary item deeply. So I would like to ask a slightly different practical question. Can we build a meaning depth around the textbook without creating a completely separate lesson? And here comes to my second question, concerns about drills. The article discusses problem mechanical drills and point out that drills alone do not create a communicative context. I agree with that point, but I still think drills have a legitimate role in elementary vocabulary learning. Students often need repetition to establish the form of a new word and gain enough competence to use it. So a better question would be which parts are needed to use repetition and which parts needed meaningful use. The third critique would be the learner's diversity, but due to the time limit, I will just go through it. Anyway, my takeaway is that I think this study is valuable because it gives us a very recognizable picture of Taiwanese elementary English teaching, and I will keep the textbook as a framework and add small layers of context, choice, differentiation, and communicative purpose. Thank you, and this is the reference.